Welcome to the T. Allen Haynes Radio Show. Conversations with elite business leaders from around the world. And now, here is your host, T. Allen Haynes.
Welcome back to the show. We've got a great guest for you today. We have Dr. David Watts, and he is chairman of the board of directors and CEO of Nebula Data Intel. He's also the president of the board of directors for American Association for Accreditation of Ambulatory Surgery Facilities, Inc. And Dr. Watts provides the overall strategic vision for Nebula Data Intel, a personable, technically proficient physician. He always considers the health and safety and desires of his patients first. He has completed more than 29,000 surgical procedures that combine art, science, and the latest technology to improve the appearance and self-esteem of patients. Dr. Watts graduated from Thomas Jefferson Medical College, completed a full general surgery residency at the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry, and obtained board certification in general surgery and plastic surgery, and completed his plastic surgery training at Johns Hopkins University. Additionally, Dr. Watts was an assistant clinical professor at Johns Hopkins University and holds 10 certifications and licenses and sits on several boards. He's an accomplished doctor and surgeon, and he is, at heart, an entrepreneur. And Dr. Watts is a sought-after speaker, author, TV personality, and skincare product creator. Welcome to the show, Dr. Watts.
Alan, thank you so much for having me today, my friend. It's greatly appreciated.
Oh, we're super excited to have you on the show today. So let's just get right into it. Tell us about the business that you're in and the types of people that you're helping.
Well, you know, we really are a combination business. The core business from which we originated from, and I would say our sister business, is Quad AAASF, which is the American Association for the Accreditation of Ambulatory Surgical Facilities, better known as Quad A because it's 4 A's SF. We're an organization that has been around for approximately 38 years, and we accredit outpatient surgical centers. We have approximately 2,800 surgical facilities that we accredit in the United States and in 16 countries. We have deeming authority for CMS, which is Medicare, the federal government, in 28 of the states. This actually puts us in a very, very unique position, Alan, because it gives us the ability to actually interact with surgical facilities on a daily basis and approximately 10,000 doctors that are contained within these surgical centers. So we have a unique position and a great relationship, basically you would say goodwill, with these surgical centers. Having said that, approximately 60 to 65% of all surgery done in the United States is done in an outpatient surgical center. So this is an extremely important space that we're in. What we have been doing at Quad ASF for the last 12 years is collecting what we call outcome data, and that is complication data. We're the only accrediting organization in the country that collects any kind of data from the surgical centers. This is incredibly significant because essentially we have trained the surgical centers to give and provide data for us. We've taken that concept of them providing data from the surgical center realm and have expanded upon this. So we're really not a new startup. We're really a spinoff, and the spinoff of our sister organization, Quad ASF, is Nebula Data Intel, which we fondly refer to it as NDI. And from NDI, we're able to actually mine data from the surgical center space, including sales data, which is actually the cost of what's being used, usage data, all of the supplies that are being used in the surgical center, outcome data, which we spoke about, which is actually the complications, pharmaceutical data, insurance data, so essentially what insurance companies the patients are or have. And then finally, and I think the most important, is patient satisfaction data, and this has never been done before. And this is where we're actually able to build patient profiles, about every procedure that's being done. So we're able to say, for example, if you're having a total knee replacement, that the average patient is 65, is the female, may be diabetic, may smoke cigarettes, and may have, be on steroids. So we're now able to isolate, and very similar to Amazon, where they say, we know that you bought X, Y, and Z before, so you probably would like ABC. We're now able to identify what has gone on with the patients related to surgery, not only immediately, but because we have access to these patients, we're able to follow them. So on this knee example, we're able to look at how the knee held up during therapy, perhaps 6 weeks afterwards, 12 weeks, 18 weeks, and then 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road. So we're able to follow a longitudinal study of how the patients are doing, which has never been done before.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that with us. So give us a little backstory about how you got started in this field. I mean, did you wake up one day and decide you want to be a doctor, or how did that get started?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. My father's actually an artist, Alan, and I think because of that, some of it rubbed off on me, and that's actually what, helped prompt me to go into plastic surgery, because I really have a gift for being able to see symmetry, form, and shape, and I can't take any credit. I have to give it to the genetics from my father. So what actually happened is that, I was going through medical school, and then there was really just, I was drawn into the artistic nature of surgery, and then that led me into plastic surgery. From there, as I got out into practice, I wanted to start my own surgery center, worked with AAAASF, and then went along and eventually, have become president of the organization as well as CEO of Nebula Data Intel. The turning point of this whole situation related to going from just being an accrediting organization to essentially a big data company, because this is what we're talking about here today, is big data, is the fact that one day I was in the operating room and I said, what if we look at this, instead of being an operative procedure, we look at this as a point of transaction? So almost like accrual-based accounting, where you buy something, ahead of time, and then you realize that actual transaction and record it. If you look at the surgical procedure as actually the recording of that transaction when you bought the supplies, now you're able to capture everything that goes on as it relates to surgical supplies, as it relates to pharmaceutical drugs, not only in the operating room but in recovery room, and we're actually able to trace the patients going forward once they've been discharged home, which is gigantic now with this opioid epidemic. Because the thing of it is that not only looking at what's caused the drug addiction, and is coming to a large degree from the surgical centers as the surgeons are writing for pain meds as well as pain management, but then also the new non-narcotic regimens to get the patients off. And with our pharmaceutical data, we can now track that to find out how the non-narcotics are working out for the patients, because we're able to build patient profile on how they're doing on non-narcotics, which has never been done before either. This is really revolutionary, Alan, and a disruptor to the medical field.
Oh, absolutely, and we'll come back to that for sure. And you mentioned someone that inspired you, which was your father. But along the way, has there been a book that stood out that's really inspired you?
Yes, actually, I'm a general surgeon as well as a plastic surgeon, and the essentially father of general surgery is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Seymour Schwartz, who was my professor, and he wrote the book Principles of Surgery. And that book is really the Bible of general surgery, and to actually have the opportunity and to be blessed to train with someone of that stature, knowledge base, and surgical skills was truly a privilege. So I would say his book and Dr. Schwartz himself had a tremendous effect on me, really, as it goes for surgical training.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that with us. So I feel your passion, and I've read your bio, but what is it that really gets you up in the morning to help the people that you're helping?
Alan, the thing that gets me up every morning is the ability to really help patients and to make a difference. Where I practice, and again, it's nothing wrong with it, is, I'm not in the middle of, the big city. I'm actually out in a rural area that's actually fairly underprivileged. And we have a lot of patients that can't pay. They have, financial issues. And I'm able to actually, no matter whether people can pay, not pay, and we tend to get diseases that are advanced due sometimes to the poor socioeconomic situation. The fact that I can really use all of the skill set, because I trained down at Johns Hopkins actually with Dr. Ben Carson, as you know, who is the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. I can use all of those skills to really help in this somewhat underprivileged area. So that is really big for me, and that's what gets me up in the morning.
Thanks for sharing that with us. So, again, congratulations on being innovative on what you're describing there. Congratulations on being invited to the Crypto Business Forum in New York. What are you finding to be the most common misconception about big data in hospitals in the medical field?
It's actually interesting. There's several, and I'm so glad you asked me this, Alan. One of the things that is I think a huge misconception and where things are missed, as we talked about with big data in medicine, and I just want to give you some background. Big data in medicine is a tremendous area of opportunity, and the market space is approximately $210 billion, so it's gigantic. This is really going to be a game changer and a disruptor as we go forward into the 21st century. The thing that most people do not realize is that the ability to gather data in the medical space is incredibly difficult. Hospitals will not work together to get the data, so the surgical data that we're talking about, you will never be able to ascertain or gather from hospitals, because hospitals will not work together as a collective because they're competitors. The surgical centers, however, because all of our data is de-identified, encrypted, and hashed, so there's no competition between the surgical centers, and this data is now brought together, aggregated, stored in the high-trust cloud, and actually sold on our open market data platform, and then using smart contracts, these interactions or transactions are placed on the blockchain. Because of all of this, we're able to gather that data. And by being able to gather that data, we're now able to get a sense as to what's happening in essentially the black box, which is the surgical operating room or operating theater. This will never happen in hospitals, and the only way to get that data is really through us. So the biggest thing that I would say is that it's a black box. The other thing, Alan, when you look at it for essentially the people who would be interested in purchasing this data, and that we actually have 12 vertical markets, and hopefully we'll get into what they actually are. But when you look at those 12 vertical markets of who would be interested, it's really a black box. So take, for instance, medical manufacturing. The medical manufacturing group, or the people who actually make the products, once the product is sold into the facility, they have no idea how their product's being used or their end user, how it's affecting them, which seems almost unbelievable, especially in this day and age. But back to that total knee example that I gave you, if you take that patient and we look and see how she did post-operatively, Stryker, who may be one of the knee manufacturers, has no idea how that knee has held up. So did the patient have pain? Did the joint bone interface with the cement? How did that hold? How did the patient do in physical therapy? They have no idea. With our data, we're able to track all of this, which makes it very unusual. I'll give you another example. There's a company that makes these things called pain balls, which is a very fine catheter that has a reservoir that actually pumps lidocaine or novocaine into the area. Now, that's currently used for total joints of the knee and hip. But what the manufacturer didn't realize is that we're using it in plastic surgery to numb up areas for the face, for facelifts, breast reductions, breast augmentations, tummy tucks, etc. So what's happening is that once these products are sold, it basically is a black box that these manufacturers have no idea. To give you another example, let's take Wall Street. Wall Street and that are following companies will not know what the sales volume is until at the end of the reporting quarter, so say the first quarter. Our data is essentially received and aggregated real-time throughout the entire United States. So we have a real-time data model. With that real-time data, we actually will know what the sales volume will be before the company does. So, for example, back to the knee, if Stryker projects they're going to sell 5,000 knees in the first quarter, they're not going to know until the end of the first quarter whether they made their number or not. We are going to know at the end of a week, at the end of a month, at the end of 2 months whether they came close to that 5,000 or not. And with that data, the company the broker-dealer who's working on this or the portfolio manager could then make the decision as to whether they want to go long on it or have a short play if they didn't come close to making their numbers. So with this data, we're actually able to ascertain what's happening real-time, and there is no other real-time data out here in the medical field.
That's excellent. Great piece of nuggets there. Thank you for sharing that. So let's go right into what would be your best piece of advice to the medical industry who's considering, making sure that there's viable access to this data?
I think the thing of it is that the thing that makes it most difficult to obtain if individual physicians were trying to do this is the ability to aggregate and gather or mine the data. We have a patented system, and this is the key to it, Alan. And again, I think at NDI and Quad A, we have a very, very unique perspective because we're really coming from boots on the ground. I mean, I was in the operating room today and did, 6 or 7 operations. I'm with my nurses. I'm with the scrub techs. So we're seeing exactly what happens. And the biggest problem with gathering data is to not disrupt the workflow. What do I mean by that? In the operating room staff, from the surgeon, anesthesiologist, circulating nurse, scrub nurse, everyone is focused on that patient. And anything related to gathering data can take everyone off of task. What we've done at NDI is we've created a patented process using a tablet, 3 clicks on the tablet, and in 4 seconds, we can collect every piece of data related to that surgical center or surgical procedure, including the gathering of and collecting the supplies that were used, the price of the supplies, as well as the pharmaceutical data, all within 4 seconds. And that is the key. By using our system, we are able to gather all of that data at one time without disrupting workflow. The other thing that we actually do is that we actually provide to the physicians benchmarking data, because right now the average surgeon doesn't know what they're doing compared to other surgeons in the country. To give you an example, as a plastic surgeon, if I do a breast reduction, I don't know what the average number of breast wound infections are. So if I have 10 for the year, is that good? Is that bad? That's very important to a surgeon to know where you rank. The other thing is efficiency and cost effectiveness in the operating room, because everyone's working on very tight margins. Right now, the average plastic surgeon does not know what the cost of a breast reduction would be, so your cost of goods sold. I can tell you the number is $287.38. The average plastic surgeon doesn't know. They don't know how many sutures they use compared to everyone else. With that data, which we will provide to our participating facilities, they now will be able to be more efficient, which will drop to their bottom line. So this is a win-win procedure, or a win-win collection of data across the board. The other thing is speaking about medicine going forward, Alan, is that big data is going to be the driving force to these quant computers going forward. And with quant computers, which are the Rolls-Royce, of computers, just like a Rolls-Royce sitting in the parking lot, it has to have gasoline. Our big data is going to be the gasoline for the quant computers going forward. The quant computers, using the data that we're able to provide, are going to be able to solve the medical issues that are going on and will occur in the future. So, for example, if there's a mortality or death rate related to breast cancer, and we have a group of patients here, and I'm in New Jersey and close to Philadelphia in the Delaware Valley region, we will now be able to collect this data from not only in the Philadelphia region, but over in California, down in Texas, all over the whole country. This data will now be fed into a quant computer, and they will now be able to look at outcomes, pick up trends that we as normal humans and even researchers would never be able to do. So in my mind, big data and the medical big data that we can collect at NDI is going to be the gasoline that drives the quant computers, which are the Rolls-Royce of the future.
Wow, that's exciting. And thank you again for sharing that. So how can people access this, or how are they going to be able to obtain this data?
So the thing of it is that what they will be able to do is we actually have what's called an open market data platform, and we actually have 2 tiers of data. And what we're actually looking to do, and where this will be a good investment for people, is that we actually have figured out a way to commoditize, and monetize data. So think not only as big data as the gasoline, for the quant computers, but also think of data, which is a gasoline, as a commodity, because you can go and buy, commodities on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange related to natural gas, oil, sweet crude, all these different things. Well, data can also be a commodity. And what we're looking to do is to be able to buy and sell data on our open market data platform, which is proprietary, and people who are interested in buying data, and I'll give you the 12 verticals of people who are interested. So Wall Street would be interested, medical manufacturing, medical hardware companies, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, large companies that self-insure, medical malpractice, legal, the NIH, the CDC, the new Amazon, J.P. Morgan, Berkshire Hathaway conglomerate would be interested. And finally, this is an overseas piece that can be replicated, so the upside is unlimited. They would actually be the buyers. Our surgical center data, which is real-time, would be available for a subscription, either as a one-time or an ongoing subscription. We will take our raw data, run it through artificial intelligence and machine learning, which will further make the data granular, which can now be sold to our potential vertical markets. Individuals who are hospitals, and this is how they can get in the game, research centers, large corporations that have medical data, they can now take their data, we'll analyze it, run it through artificial intelligence and machine learning, and they can sell it as well. On the buy side, the buyers, we will now take artificial intelligence and pick out the best data sets that match for them. So this will be essentially taking the data from the operating room. The data will come to our open market platform. Now with our Tier 1, Alan, and this is what makes this incredibly special and such a great investment. This data will actually be, because it's real time, you can actually make markets off of this, very similar to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So our open market data platform becomes the spot or the cash market where the transaction occurs. This can now be made into derivatives like forwards, futures, options, and swaps over with a partnership, perhaps either with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange or the Intercontinental Exchange, and there's a 40-to-1 ratio of essentially derivative transactions that can be based off of our trade, because we can actually make these data sets into indices. So this is incredibly exciting, because you're taking big data which can drive these quant computers, but also can be turned into a commodity which can be sold on a market platform. This has never been done before. This is really a disruptor, not only in the medical field, so we call it med, in the financial field in creating data into a financial instrument, and also in the tech field, because this will all be stored on the blockchain.
Yes, it's very exciting. And again, it's very innovative and we look forward to much success in what you're doing. So the listeners are probably chomping at the bit to find out how they can get involved with you, and how can they do that?
What we would like for them to do is to reach out to us. We're going to have actually a security token, which will be up for sale. There'll be a discount for the early investors. And the thing that makes our security token very special is that we're actually offering a 10% distribution on adjusted gross revenue. And unlike most crypto companies, because of the fact that we have data and our data has value, we will actually have 6 revenue streams coming off of our data, which then can throw off distributions while the investors are holding this, because this will be a Reg D offering. So if they want to contact us, they can reach us at www.nebuladataintel.com or go through our Telegram at https://tme-nebula data intel, and we'd be happy to get the investing instructions. And we're actually looking to put out about 30 million tokens. We're looking to have a soft cap raise at around $15 to $18 million. So anyone who would like to invest with us, we would be more than happy to take and work with them for the investments. And I can tell you something else, Alan. An investment in Nebula Data Intel, you're really getting in on the sub-basement of big data in the medical field that will drive these quant computers and end up being a commodity that can be sold over on the Chicago Mercantile or the Intercontinental Exchange, and this will never be done before. I'm telling you, this is a disruptor for finance and medicine. This is a game changer.
Well, absolutely. We're super excited to see you at the Crypto Business Forum in New York, helping you succeed in what you're disrupting. Absolutely. So thank you for being on the show. We certainly appreciate your time.
And thank you, Alan, so much. You've been a fantastic host, and we can't wait to come and participate in the program. We're really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
All right.
There you have it for this edition of the show. We'll see you the next time.
Thanks for listening to the T. Allen Haynes Radio Show with T. Allen Haynes. Conversations with elite business leaders from around the world. We will see you next time on the T. Allen Haynes Radio Show.